Hello and welcome back to my vlog. We continue with Bastiat's Sophisms of the Objectivists. And this is a chapter 6. I don't remember if it's from part 1 or part 2. It's titled Two Artisans and Laborers. And I split this is part 1. Many papers have attacked me before you. Will you not read my defense? I am not mistrustful. When a man writes or speaks, I believe that he thinks what he says. What is the question? To ascertain which is the more advantageous for you, restriction or liberty. I believe that it is liberty. They believe it is restriction. It is for each one to prove his case. Was it necessary to insinuate that we are the agents of England? You will see how easy recrimination would be on this ground. We are, they say, agents of the English, because some of us have used the English words meeting, free trader. And do not they use the English words drawback and budget? We imitate Cobden and the English democracy. Do not they parody Bentinck and the British aristocracy? We borrow from perfidious Albion the doctrine of liberty. Do not they borrow from her the sophisms of protection? We follow the commercial impulse of Bordeaux and the South. Do not they serve the greed of Lilly and the manufacturing North? We favor the secret designs of the ministry, which desires to turn public attention away from the protective policy. Do not they favor the views of the custom house officers who gain more than anybody else by this protective regime? So you see that if we did not ignore this war of epithets, we should not be without weapons. But that is not the point in issue. The question, which I shall not lose sight of, is this. Which is better for the working classes, to be free or not to be free to purchase from abroad? Workmen, they say to you, if you are free to buy from abroad these things which you now make yourselves, you will no longer make them. You will be without work, without wages, and without bread. It is then for your own good that your liberty be restricted. This objection recurs in all forms. They say, for instance, if we clothe ourselves with English cloth, if we make our plowshares with English iron, if we cut our bread with English knives, if we wipe our hands with English napkins, what will become of the French workmen? What will become of the national labor? Tell me, workmen, if a man stood on the pier at Boulogne and said to every Englishman who landed, if you will give me those English boots, I will give you this French hat. Or, if you will let me have this English horse, I will let you have this French carriage. Or, are you willing to exchange this Birmingham machine for this Paris clock? Or again, does it suit you to barter your Newcastle coal for this champagne wine? I ask you, whether supposing this man makes his proposals with average judgment, it can be said that our national labor, taken as a whole, would be harmed by it. Would it be more so if there were 20 of these people offering to exchange services at Boulogne instead of 1? If 1,000,000 barters were made instead of 4, and if the intervention of merchants and money was called on to facilitate them and multiply them indefinitely? Now let one country buy of another at wholesale to sell again at retail, or at retail to sell again at wholesale. It will always be found, if the matter is followed out to the end, that commerce consists of mutual barter of products for products, of services for services. If, then, one barter does not injure the national labor, since it implies as much national labor given as foreign labor received, 100 million of them cannot hurt the country. But you will say, where is the advantage? The advantage consists in making a better use of the resources of each country, so that the same amount of labor gives more satisfaction and well-being everywhere. There are some who employ singular tactics against you. They begin by admitting the superiority of freedom over the prohibitive system, doubtless in order that they may not have to defend themselves on that ground. Next, they remark that in going from one system to another, there will be some displacement of labor. Then they dilate upon the sufferings which, according to themselves, this displacement must cause. They exaggerate and amplify them. They make of them the principal subject of discussion. They present them as the exclusive and definite result of reform, and thus try to enlist you under the standard of monopoly. These tactics have been employed in the service of all abuses, and I must frankly admit one thing, that it always embarrasses even the friends of those reforms which are most useful to the people. You will understand why. When an abuse exists, everything arranges itself upon it. Human existences connect themselves with it, others with these, then still others, and this forms a great edifice. Do you raise your hand against it? Each one protests, and notice this particularly, those persons who protest always seem at the first glance to be right, because it is easier to show the disorder which must accompany the reform than the order which will follow it. The friends of the abuse cite particular instances. They name the persons and their workmen who will be disturbed, while the poor devil of a reformer can only refer to the general good, which must insensibly diffuse itself among the masses. This does not have the effect which the other has. Thus, supposing it is a question of abolishing slavery, unhappy people, they say to the colored men, who will feed you? The master distributes floggings, but he also distributes rations. It is not seen that it is not the master who feeds the slave, but his own labor, which feeds both himself and master. When the convents of Spain were reformed, they said to the beggars, "Where will you find broth and clothing? The abbot is your providence. Is it not very convenient to apply to him?" And the beggars said, "That is true. If the abbot goes, we see what we lose, but we do not see what will come in its place." They do not notice that if the convents gave alms, they lived on alms, so that the people had to give them more than they could receive back. Thus, workmen, a monopoly imperceptibly puts taxes on your shoulders and then furnishes you work with the proceeds. Your false friends say to you, if there was no monopoly, who would furnish your work? You answer, this is true, this is true. The labor which the monopolists procure us is certain. The promises of liberty are uncertain. For you do not see that they first take money from you and then give you back a part of it for your labor. Do you ask who will furnish you work? Why, you will give each other work. With the money which will no longer be taken from you, the shoemaker will dress better and will make work for the tailor. The tailor will have new shoes oftener and keep the shoemaker employed. So it will be with all occupations. They say that with freedom there will be fewer workmen in the mines and the mills. I do not believe it. But if this does happen, it is necessarily because there will be more labor freely in the open air. For if, as they say, these mines and spinning mills can be sustained only by the aid of taxes imposed on everybody for their benefit, these taxes, once abolished, everybody will be more comfortably off, and it is the comfort of all which feeds the labor of each one. Excuse me if I linger at this demonstration. I have so great a desire to see you on the side of liberty. Looks like a good place to stop. Make it a great day, and bye for now.